Alright, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Dizzy Doctors, 1937. There's Shemp, Larry, and Mo. I used to love this stuff when I was a kid. Much more so than Laurel and Hardy. Good stuff. Then when I was a teenager, I'd go to the Laurel Theater in San Carlos, watch Three Stooges marathon. Yeah, back in the 80s. Anyways, speaking of the 80s, I started watching The Exterminator Part 2, and it's by the same director as I'm sorry, The Executioner Part 2. I always get the name mixed up, but I was reading about it, and the director is actually the guy who did Don't Go in the Woods, 1981. The immortal Don't Go in the Woods. And in 1980, there was a film called The Exterminator. So there is no Executioner Part 1, of course, but they just came up with the name to make it similar to The Exterminator, which they ripped off. And I love Don't Go in the Woods. Great flick. I remember looking at the bonus features, and some lady, I think she was an actress in the movie, she said James Bryan, the director, reached deep in his arse and pulled out Don't Go in the Woods. So I'm almost done with the Executioner Part 2. Another Adrian recommendation. Great flick so far. One of those so good that it's good type movies. And the Z-grade horror that I mentioned in a bunch of my videos never showed up. So finally I got fed up, and I told Netflix to send me a replacement disc. But getting back to well, actually, let me show you the other disc that I got today. That wasn't the Z-grade horror that I was expecting. The double bill. This is The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Not much going on there. Just disc 1. The feature film. And who knows what's on disc 2. Netflix never has bonus features. They used to, not anymore. They never put the bonus features disc on their DVD. They used to have a little red button that said bonus features on it. I could click on it and they'd send me an extra disc, but not anymore. So, as I was saying, Dizzy Doctors. Okay, so this one has Mo, Larry, and Curly. And they like to sleep in until 11 a.m., like my son, during spring break. And they make funny noises like Shemp when he sleeps. But Curly always does the woo 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 woo. And Shemp always does ee me 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 when he's snoring. So you got that, and they all sleep in the same bed. Their 3 wives show up, tell them to go look for a job in the midst of the Great Depression, 1937. Yeah, Great Depression. That was when my grandfather was growing up. he lived on a farm, so there was plenty of food to go around. But I think that's why he had 4 kids, because he was used to big family. I'm used to small family. It's just me and my son. But anyways, dizzy doctors. So they get the 3 Stooges get a job selling Brido. It's a medicine, but they think it's some kind of cleaning solution. So they're like putting holes in the policeman's jacket. They're rubbing the paint off some of the dude's car, and it happens to be the medical director of the hospital. So they go back, and the Brido guy wants to fire them, but they convince him not to fire them. So the Brido dude tells him, "Oh, this is medicine. It's not cleaning solution." So they go to the hospital, and they wake up this guy who's been sleeping for 87 days. He gets all upset, and he says, "I want to go back to sleep." They shove this Brido down his throat, and then they go up to a guy who's got dandruff. What's he doing in a hospital for dandruff problem? I don't know, but they start rubbing the Brido on his head, and his hair starts disappearing. Then they bump into the medical director dude, and there's a chase scene with the gurney, and they end up crashing into a car. The car tips over sideways. So plenty of slapstick in this one. I've got a bunch of more Three Stooges shorts, hour 33 minutes worth. So I'm going to be watching that tomorrow. Probably get like 5 more reviews in tomorrow, and yeah, I'll be watching Three Stooges tomorrow. Hopefully I'll get to the Shemp one. I forget what the Shemp one's called. I always liked Shemp better than Curly or Larry or Moe or Curly Joe or any of those people. Curly Joe was horrible. Any of Shemp's successors were pretty bad. They started going downhill in the 50s, I think, after Shemp died. Gary Daniels was not in Mission of Justice. Well, okay, so I do a Google query. I click on Gary Daniels, and I'm looking at Gary Daniels' IMDb page. So I scroll down to the early 90s. And, let's see. Mission of Justice. He was the martial artist in the prologue, according to IMDb. Yeah, he's a British dude. He was in the prologue. He was the martial artist in the very beginning. So he was actually in Mission of Justice. Thanks for trying to correct me there, but I just looked it up on IMDb. It says Mission. I'm on the Gary Daniels page. Scroll down to 1992, Mission of Justice, martial artist in the prologue. So just to give you a heads up, I don't mean to sound conceited there, but I did do the research and I found it. So you might be interested to know that he was in the prologue. Maybe they were just showing his shadows or something. You didn't recognize him. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm 6 minutes late with my son again. But thanks for joining the chat room. And you're right, he was underrated in Recoil. Looking at Recoil, which was 1998, I added Deadly Target to my Netflix queue, by the way. Detective Ray Morgan. Okay. So it gets a 5.4 out of 10. There's no way it should be rated that low, but it only has 565 ratings. So I guess the people who watched it weren't Daniels fans. They just kind of stumbled on it. But I've got 3 Gary Daniels movies on my Netflix queue now. I couldn't find the third one that you mentioned in your first comment on my last video. But I did add the other 2. And that's about it. Thanks for coming to the chat room. Laters.